Hello everyone. Welcome to this first day in Capstone project. You're gonna be doing this the whole week, so it's gonna be decision science project that you're gonna start today. So first, we're gonna talk about the motivation. So what's in for you in order to make this business case? What are the things you're gonna learn? Why it is important to become a data scientist or data analyst in these days? Um, the current market is evolving towards these kind of jobs. So why? What are the different disciplines? What are the different posts that you can apply to? A little bit of everything of that. Then we're gonna start with the case. The case is gonna be a business case, a real business case that's gonna be around a company that is actually called Oldest, which is a Brazilian company that actually helps people to put products in several marketplaces, Amazon, for example. Um, and we're gonna have their data set that actually they put it in Kaggle. So they shared actually this data set in order to data scientists and data analysts to just take a look and maybe have good insights about what people might do with this information. So it's quite a complex data set that you might find in some or most of a lot of companies anyway. So that's going to be quite useful. There's going to be probably, I think, 5 or 6 data sets, which means 5 or 6 Excel documents or CSV that you're going to create in Excel and Power BI. And you're going to have to link them, as you saw probably on the SQL part with relational databases. So you're going to have to look for the key and then just merge and find out how you're going to treat these databases in order to take all the information. Once you have this information, then you can start to explore it and use some of the tools that you have already learned in order to take insights from these data sets. There's something that's going to be really important. It's going to be the consulting methodology. So here we're mostly talking about most of the times how consulting projects are handled. So once you have the data, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to treat the information? Most of the time people are a little bit lost, so it's important to have some kind of procedures, some kind of structure, which is going to help you structure for sure your business case and your methodology in order to treat probably most of the cases that you will do in the future for future companies and clients. Then we're going to see how we're going to organize the project. So the structure of these 5 days that are just ahead of us, how we're going to treat this, how we're going to do the lectures, just some things, some of the things that you should know is that the lectures, especially the second day, is going to be a little bit theoretical, not going to be exactly related to the challenges and the exercises you have to do on the second day, but you're going to have a better understanding about why we did this in the third day, which is the day we're going to start doing some regressions and some start into the modeling with some linear regressions. So it's mostly some of the things you've already seen them in probably in the statistics and in the probability module in the past couple of weeks, where we're going to see them over and see how they can be applied to real business cases. So that's quite interesting and quite amazing. I hope you're really excited. And then I'm gonna tell you some useful tips that will help you organize and maybe make a little more structured project for your future business cases. All right. So there's going to be 5 sessions long data consulting challenge based on a real case study. The objective in this 5 days module is for sure to use a consulting methodology in order to answer the real business problematic using this depth analysis of historical business data. So what we have here is the information from 2017 to 2000, I guess 19 or something like that. You will have to take a look at this historical past data. You're going to have to solve a problem that we're going to state in the next couple of slides, and then try to solve it and try to have an approach, a consulting approach, in order to take this using, of course, all the tools and methodology that you have learned until now to the business case. So, what are the first steps, and what are you gonna do in your first business case analysis? So yeah, for sure, one of the most important things that you will always have to do is prepare and import your data. Here, we're gonna give it to you. I mean, like it's already a database that it's um, already public, so it's in Kaggle. Most of the time, or sometimes, uh, you will have to maybe scrap your data, look for it, go to maybe talk to your client, and maybe get access to their internal database in order to get this information, and then import it, clean it, and make a lot of preprocessing. Then when you have cleaned and imported data, first steps, of course, understand through basic statistical analysis what is going on. So use some of the basic tools that you already learned, but that we're going to see still in the next couple of days. Understand the data, understand the databases, how they're connected, how can you maybe solve the problematic of the problem, or the problem that you have, using these tables, these data sets, and then use maybe statistical inferences to ensure findings are robust. Statistical inference means that you can maybe generalize, because maybe sometimes you won't have all the data, so you will have to assume that the sampling is going to be something that you will be able to generalize to the entire population. And other times, maybe because you have the computers and the computational capabilities, you will have to just use a subsample in order to take your hypothesis and see if the data is going to be corresponding to the most of the population. Once you have mastered your data and features, so you will have to prepare putting recommendations, and then of course one of the most maybe important parts of the job, it's to communicate your results to your CEO. So even though, if yeah, of course, we're here in a data course and your objective is to become a data analyst, you will have to communicate. It's maybe as important as the analysis, the mathematics, the statistics, and the probabilities, the communication that you have to go through, because most of the times people that know a lot about data engineers, they're disconnected to maybe the reality, or maybe they don't know how to transmit this information and these results in a business oriented kind of way to the comics and the CEOs. So it's really important that you can just describe complex models and complex statistical analysis with just a few slides, 5 minutes presentation, and then just pitch the solutions in order to create a result, create an effect to people that maybe are not that comfortable with data, but they understand where you came from, and then they will be able to take action on your recommendations and in your analysis. All right. So what is going to be the motivation for us? So I wanted to show you this, which is called the Venn diagram. And actually, there's a lot of jobs that you can do on the data. Most of the people just say data scientist, data consultant, but there's actually a lot of things that you can do when you start learning and you start trading, start like learning a lot with all the jobs you can do with data. So yeah, for example, if you just can communicate but you don't know anything about statistics, programming, or business, that is what we call hot air. So that means that actually that has no depth. It's useless. It's not gonna have any use case in any sense in the company. If you only know statistics, okay, maybe you're just gonna be, without being disrespectful, of course, what they call the data nerd. So that's not gonna where you want to be actually. If you want to be just programming, you don't want to be just a hacker, which is going to be someone behind the computer just coding all the time and just maybe not connected to the reality of the business. And someone who knows maybe a lot of the business, but they don't know exactly anything about statistics, communication, programming, could be what we call the accountant. So there are some intersections between this, We're not going to see them all. Um, the stats prof, the IT guy, the Oracle team, and what you want to be, it's actually probably inside of this. All right, so maybe these are the main abilities and the main competencies that you want to have in order to be a successful data scientist or a successful data consultant or a successful data analyst. So you will have to have a little bit of communication. So the communication skills, that's what it's important. And the fifth day, we're gonna have to make a presentation, maybe 5-minute presentation in order to pitch your results, which is gonna be really important. Um, uh, Statistics, which that's why we're gonna take 2 days in order to review some of the important and basics in statistics that are gonna help us establish some hypothesis testing, intervals, confidence intervals, um, inference statistics, whatever, some programming, of course. So here we're going to try to do the minimum. We're going to have to use we're going to use most of the time Excel, Power Query, and Power BI. So that's not going to be a big problem, even though that here in the programming part you'll have to be really comfortable with the tools that actually we're going to ask you to use. So there's going to be some kind of advanced things that you will have to do, but it's going to be important that you master them in order to be at ease and find the insights and the results that we're asking you. And of course, the business part. The business part is really important. So that's why if you have some insights in business, if you have already a career before an experience, I don't know, in pharmaceutical, in agriculture, whatever, it's important that you just don't become a data scientist, but you just keep that in mind and use that information in order to have better analysis and have a better perspective of any business case. And then that's where you become a data science consultant or a good business data analysis consultant. So this is the spot where you want to be. I would say data science, but also data analyst. Of course, here you don't have exactly the programming or not as advanced as maybe data science, but I guess we can put you in this case for sure. Why do you want to become a data expert today? So actually, the big data world, and the big data and business analytics grew from $122 billion in global revenue in 2015 to $189 billion in 2019. And actually, it's growing and still growing every single year, and it's going to grow till up till $274 billion for 2022. It means like this is actually a domain where people and companies are asking every single year thousands, but thousands and thousands of people qualified for these jobs. So maybe today companies are still in the transition phase because they're actually not enough adaptive in order to integrate all these new jobs and these new possibilities into their market and their analysis, but they're doing it slowly. Mostly in Europe, they're already doing it. In the United States, and South America, Central America, it's growing really fast, and you have to gain these new competencies and these new skills in order to be part of this buzz that is being created around the data. So, yeah, digital transformation has become a buzzword in modern business, and talented data analysts are needed now more than ever before. Career openings back from nearly every industry, from telecommunications, manufacturing, retail, banking, healthcare, sports, gaming, everything, agriculture, everything that you can imagine, it's gonna be there. So even though today, like the most famous clubs are actually recruiting data scientists in order to make and model the behaviors of the players on the pitch, and they are able actually to understand the strengths, the liabilities. They are able to understand their opponents. They will predict, for example, what's the probability of Messi hitting a penalty, which is the side, which is the angle. So everything is going to be used in the future for these jobs. And as you can see, most of the times, like, okay, maybe you don't want to predict something, but just by analyzing the quantity of passes, just by analyzing and taking this information, making it just into some kind of database, data visualization. It's already a tremendous amount of work, and it's already something that could be really insightful for the directors of the team. This here is just some database, so projecting where's the path going to be. This is just data model, and this has nothing to do with data modeling. It's going to be just putting the information and the data once it's going to be cleaned and treated into a new kind of visual way in order to people understand the behaviors and take insights from them. So that's where we're going to try to do this week by creating, of course, Power BI's dashboards, KPIs, and trying to create this visual part that is going to be used for managers and for directors of comics, people from the comics, in order to take decisions inside of the company. So what do you need to become one of this? We're talking about these new people that is being looked everywhere by the companies in the data field. So according to the Columbia Engineering, these here are the top technical soft skills required to become a good data analyst. So as I told before, data visualization, which is the part where you take the databases and actually just create something visual, just creating graphs, just creating scatter plots, just creating distributions. That's going to be really helpful to understand the data. You won't have to actually go into the modeling part for this, and it's actually a big help in companies. Data cleaning, that's one of the maybe not most fun parts of being in the data world, but it's essential, and it's actually quite meaningful. It means maybe in the database people are putting the names, they're doing it in the wrong way. Sometimes they put in the country, in the address, I don't know, whatever you have, and you as a data analyst have the job to clean this data and make it exploitable in order to your team, or maybe data scientists and all the people, or maybe just you, be able to use it as information to take decisions and take insights from these data sets or databases. So Python, which is something that you have already familiarized with in the first couple of weeks. This, if you're interested in data world, something that you might want to explore a little bit in the future. It can be practical, but I think it's maybe a little bit overrated for most of the jobs. Anyways, in the companies, what they're looking for is most of the time data analyst that knows how to handle Power BI, Excel, Power Query, Tableau, these kind of tools. SQL and NoSQL, most of the companies have their database, relational databases in SQL. So it's quite a tool that's going to be necessary in order to extract the information from the databases. So you don't have to be maybe a pro, but you have to have the basics and be sure that you're at ease with basic querying in SQL. Machine learning, this will not be part of the course, and this will not be part of the topic that we're going to treat during this week, or maybe in other bootcamp. Even though this week we're going to see what we call overlays regressions, which is the basic algorithm for machine learning. One of the basics algorithms for machine learning is one of the most used anyways, but we will do it in Excel, which allows us in the data analysis adding in Excel to create and model and make these basic models. So not machine learning, but we will see for sure OLS regressions, which stand for ordinary least squares. Linear algebra and calculus, which you already have, I guess, a couple of modules on them. We're going to still see a little bit of these topics this week. Microsoft Excel for sure. You will have to use it a lot this week. Critical thinking and communication. So the critical thinking is the part that's going to be maybe something that we're not going to see exactly here. We're going to try to help you with the consulting methodology in order to learn what's going on inside. Um, but as I say, the best spot to have this critical thinking is just to take into consideration your past experiences. And if you work, try to maybe get a job in a company where you have some understanding of the sector, of how the company works, of the environment. It will help you a lot in order to make better analysis and better treatment of the data set, of the data and the databases. And the communication, for sure, really important. Most of the people just don't take this into consideration, but just train yourself to have a great communication, to be able to explain complex problems. I guess it was Albert Einstein that said, if you want somebody to understand anything that you're doing, you should be able to explain it, even if it's the more complex thing in the world, to a 6-year-old boy. And this 6-year-old boy should he would be able, if you did it right, to re-explain what you already told the boy. So take into consideration this, even if you're doing complex statistics and complex maybe overlays, regressions, or whatever, try to always think about the people you're pitching your informations and your recommendations in order to make it clear and understandable for everyone. We will use most of the skills for this project for sure. The only one that we will not see entirely is machine learning. We'll see a little bit of linear regressions. So yeah, this is the pyramid of needs. So yeah, data preparation is the key. This is what I call the AI hierarchy of needs of Monica Rigodi. What it means is that actually in any data project or any data business consulting case or whatever you're trying to do with data, there's going to be most of the time the same steps, which is going to be collect the information. So as I told you, use the SQL databases, try to extract the information, make some queries, collect in a kind of pertinent way the things that you actually want in order to treat your problematic, move and store, explore and transform. So here we can say that what is called the first part here is going to be the pre-processing. So it's going to be take into consideration the collecting, the cleaning of the data, how you're going to store it, how are you going to take a sample, is it actually smart to take all the company information, because maybe your computer is going to run for a month if you use all the information from the past 20, 15 years. Then you're going to have to use some statistics, which is going to be the statistical inference, descriptive statistics, in order to just maybe visualize, understand the data, see what's going on. We're going to see a little bit of A/B testing, so we'll learn if this data set is going to be it's going to be able to generalize well. And then, of course, the small part, which is going to be deep learning, artificial intelligence, etc., which is not going to be part of the course, of course, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because most of the things that actually are done in a company around data are things that we're going to treat and we're going to see in this week. Okay, so now we're just going to have to start a little bit with our business case, which is going to be Allist. So to explain you a little bit, Allist is a site that allows people to sell the products into marketplaces. All right. So it was founded in 2015. It is a Brazilian company, and it has already gained a lot of capital. So it has worked pretty well. They have gone big a little bit, and they actually sell services of online e-commerce services for sellers. So what they do is actually they ask you to send a catalog. You're a small merchant. They take your information, and then they put your products into big marketplaces, which is going to be could be Amazon, Bahia, Walmart, whatever. They offer actually logistic and inventory management services to sellers, which means they actually going to pick it up. They're going to pick it up, like they're going to pick up the product you're selling. So at the moment they got actually somebody that buy these products in Amazon, for example. They're going to have an alert. This alert will go to the system. Their system going to send an alert to the merchant, to the small merchant. The small merchant is going to prepare the product. They're going to come look, take the product. So they're going to take into consideration, they're going to take into account all the logistics operations, and then they're going to make a little bit of inventory management of inventory. So maybe stock a little bit, send it to the customer, and there we go. So always they do not have anything as a product. So they're just a platform that offers this service in order to connect small merchants and Brazilian marketplaces. They don't have any products, and they just offer logistic and inventory management, right? So it's a 100% digital company. All right, so if you check a little bit of the seller workflow in order to understand a little bit better what I just said. So the seller is gonna join a list. They're gonna upload a product catalog with every single product they want to sell. All it's is gonna actually put this catalog into the marketplaces they're at, so Amazon or Walmart, I don't know, whatever the other ones are. And then the seller gets notified when the product is sold, and so the seller hands it over to the third party, so logistic carrier, and multiple sellers can be involved in one customer. So that's really important to keep in mind. So if a person goes through the page of all list and just take a toothbrush and I don't know, shampoo or something, maybe both of those items are coming from different sellers, but they're going to be in the same order, and you have to keep that in mind for the next couple of weeks, for the next couple of days anyway. The customer workflow, so he actually just is scrolling through Amazon and buying the product. He gets an expected date for delivery, which is going to be given by the oldest store, and then he receives an order and he leaves a review for this particular order. And the review can be left as soon as the order is sent, meaning that a customer can leave a review of the product that he actually hasn't received. So maybe in some cases, if, I don't know, you got an expected delivery date, let's say you buy your toothbrush and all this is saying like your toothbrush is going to be arriving on Friday, but it's Friday, it's Saturday, and you haven't received your toothbrush, then you can go directly to the platform and actually just review this order before receiving the product, right? And let's talk a little bit about this data set, which is going to be something that was released in Kaggle around November 2018. You can for sure go click here. I'm going to put an Apple link where you're going to, maybe if you want to explore and see the details of the data set on the Kaggle page, you will be able to do it. There's going to be information around 100K orders between 2016 and 2018. It's actually the real data, so that's what's quite amazing. You're going to make a business case with a real business problem. So this is actually the data that they had between 2016 and 2018. And marketplaces and merchants are identifiable information that, the identifiable information have been anonymized. There's going to be 8 CSV, so there's going to be 8 files. There's going to be comma separated values, and you can find all the documentation here on the link that I'm going to put. Okay, so let's start understanding a little bit what this data model is. So each of these circles here correspond to one of the CSV. All right, they're going to be 8, so 2, 4, 6, 8. You're going to have an all list reviews data set, which you're going to have the reviews of every single order that has been passed between 2016 and 2018. This here is going to be the key, the foreign key. So you can connect your orders review dataset with the orders dataset through the order ID. Sorry. You can connect the oldest order dataset with the oldest order payments dataset by the order ID. You can connect the oldest order dataset, which is going to have the information with the orders, maybe okay, the delay, the expected delay. You can connect that with the ordered items dataset. Maybe here you can have all the information about the items that were purchased in any single order. There you have the payments. So how was it paid? Maybe if it was paid by in one, maybe some kind of mensuality or something like that. Here you're gonna have the information about the products. Here you have a description of the products. If you want to go a little bit deeper, you can have the information of the sellers because every single item is connected to a seller. And then you can have the customers here, which every single customer has is linked with the orders that are set by customer ID. And if you want to connect, this is going to be an optional pod, but if you want to make an analysis, which is going to be a little bit difficult, but I wouldn't take that much into consideration anyways at the beginning of the week, is that maybe if you want to make an analysis of distances and see that maybe the bad reviews are being given because, I don't know, the seller state and the customer state are too far away, so maybe they're taking the expected wait time is going to be maybe superior than the other ones. You can do this analysis by just getting in here and linking the code, the zip code prefix, and maybe you can find a formula or a page where you will be able to calculate distances and see the distances between every single order between the sellers and the customers. Don't take like this into consideration right now. This is something that's going to be optional if you have the time, maybe at the end of the week. If it's not, just keep in mind the other data sets. The other 7 is going to be fine, and believe me, you will have enough time to work and play with every single database in this way. Okay, so here's your mission. Your objective is to be, you're a consultant, you have been just called by the CEO of Oldest, and they actually have some problems. They're going to give you the following information. So Oldest revenues, where do they come from? So Oldest charges the sellers, right? So 10% on the cut of the product price of each order delivered. So that's something they have depending on the number of deliveries of orders for sure. And they have this monthly fee that is going to be fixed, and it's going to depend on the quantity of sellers, because every single seller is going to have to pay a monthly fee to be on the platform and to use the Oldest services. They're going to have also something that's going to be the Oldest cost IT related, which means that they scale with the square root of the number of orders processed, and the IT costs grow relatively smaller and smaller depending on the time. So yeah, this could be considered as infrastructure cost or starting fixed costs. And this is where we are, our hypothesis, and we're going to be working with this all week long. So the complication is that we actually have a cost per review. So the bad reviews, actually they have a weight on knowledge, reputation, and long-term profits. And we established that 1-star review is going to be costing 100 Brazilian reais. This is what BRL stands for. 2 stars are going to be standing for 50 reais. 3 stars are going to be costing 40 reais, and 4 and 5 stars are going to be costing nothing. So the objective of this week is you have been called and tasked by the Oldest of CEO to try to make sense on the data set and to advise on how to increase the profit margin. So how are you going to increase the profit margin? It means like also you can see it as how can you decrease the costs, because this profit margin is going to be what you sell minus the costs of selling that, right? So how do you increase the profit margin, focusing on customer satisfaction while maintaining a healthy order volume? So what you want to do here is, okay, so the hypothesis of seeing that actually every single review has a cost is maybe when we were saying focusing on customer satisfaction, is maybe because we want to decrease the cost of this review. So your objective is going to try to find out where do these low review scores come from, and how can we might improve them, right? So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. You will have to play with a lot of features, variables, um, understand where are they coming from. Be as creative as you can. We're going to show you one way of dealing with this case, and maybe one approach that you can have if you want to have something for sure. But I mean, like, use your creativity and explore as much as you can. If you have another solution, if you can at some point maybe propose some kind of hypotheses, feel free to explore. This is what you're here for. You're here to also learn a methodology, but also to express yourself. So if you want to maybe take into considerations another hypothesis and go another path, um, then the one that we actually are showing you is for sure totally something you can take into consideration. And then, yeah, we have the consulting methodology. So how am I gonna treat this problematic, but take into account that I want to be a consultant. I want to do a business case in some kind of structured way. Because if you start like from scratch and you have just a database and you don't have a structure how to treat these problematics, maybe you're gonna be lost. Sorry, you're gonna be lost a little bit, and it's gonna be quite difficult in order to just achieve something that's gonna be a recommendation, a preconization, something that's gonna be valuable for the CEO. So to understand this, we're gonna see this, which is the typical data project structure. First of all, you want to define a goal. All right. So our goal here is quite clear. Our goal here is to take into consideration the customer service and to optimize or maximize the profits. So that's gonna be our objective. Some of the time, maybe when you're gonna be called by a company or a business case, you won't have this goal that's going to be as explicit as it is here right now. So you will have to ask maybe you will have to ask yourself and maybe try to find out which is going to be the goal of this. Maybe they're just saying something's not working on, or we're not earning as much money as we might want to. So what can we do? We don't know where this is coming from, so you're gonna have to do what's gonna be called a diagnose phase. So we're gonna do it here also, but you're gonna have in this diagnose phase, which is gonna be the first step of a consultant kind of methodology. In this diagnosed stage, you will have to understand and get into the shoes of somebody that's gonna be working in the company. So you'll have to do this, of course, by talking to the people, asking them questions, getting to understand the databases, getting to understand the sales, trying to understand their KPIs, trying to understand the insights, how they're making these decisions, and you're gonna be forced to actually put yourself into the situation of the CEO of the company, of maybe the directors of the company, in order to understand this. Once if you understood maybe what's the goal, what is going to be the problematic, and what you're going to be solving, then you're going to have to get the data for that problematic. So if it's either trading maybe with the problematic of sales, maybe you can go into the CRM, into the sailing SAP into your system, and then maybe get some queries about how the sales have been in the past couple of months and a couple of years, whatever. Maybe scrap a little bit. Sometimes you will have to check for external data. Maybe sometimes the problems are not coming from the interior of the company, which is really important to take into consideration. For example, let's say you're selling, I don't know, you're selling ice cream, but it's been so cold out there that nobody wants to eat ice cream when it's cold. So maybe if you're analyzing a company like this, you want to take into into consideration external facts and external data to maybe get more enrich your database and the information that you might have to exploit to make these precognizations. Once you have data, you're gonna have to clean it. So preprocessing, feature engineering, creating new variables, making sure that everything there are no nans, there are no misplaced values. Then maybe if there are missing values, you're gonna have some methodologies in order to fill them, because if you want to make I don't know, sometimes when you're putting, for example, an Excel column or something like that, if there are missing values, you're not going to be maybe able to make an average or something like that. Maybe you could just raise up some kind of error because it's not a numerical value. So you might want to clean the data before doing anything. And treating this missing data, this wrong data, whatever, and to make the data explodable. You want to enrich the data, so maybe once you have the internal data, you want to maybe compare the cells into some panels. I don't know, Nielsen panels, for example, which is a company that provides external data for sales. They're going to tell you, okay, so you have so many, you had this much sales in that country, this much sales of these products in that country, so you can buy this information externally. So you can enrich data by that. You can enrich the data by scrapping, by looking into new pages, looking into maybe public sources, whatever you want. Find insights and visualize, which most of the people are actually, they think that the more complex you have a model, it's the better, but it's not actually that true all the time. So sometimes just by visualizing the basics, it's going to be actually quite impactful on the results. For example, there was this case like in the 19th, 18th century, I guess, where there was in London a guy that was trying to understand the reason and the problematics around a cholera infestation. And then, I don't know if what's cholera, but there was a disease actually. And the only thing he did, he just took the map of London, and he just started to drawing and putting points on the parts that actually where people were actually dying. And what he actually found out is that those were really close to the vents, like to the water structure, the water infrastructure of the city. And so they actually learned that the disease was being transmitted by this. So most of the times, or not most of the times, but sometimes you can just find real life solutions with just some insights, some visualization, some database. So please take that into your minds and don't forget that. Then if you don't know, if you don't find anything, maybe data scientists and other people could deploy machine learning. Here we're going to use some, in this case, for the oldest case, we're going to use some ordinary least squares regressions, which are going to be our machine learning model, which is the basics of machine learning, but it's going to be our model in order to predict the reviews and other things. And then you want to just iterate over everything. So use all your database, so use this model to predict all the points and all the situation and on all the scenarios you might have. All right. Cool. So when you talk, this was what we call the data project, but how about a consulting general project? So yeah, it's going to be something like this. You don't have to do everything like this in this week, but I just put this, so you can have an idea about what a consultant would do actually in a mission. Maybe some of you will take the path of data consultant, then you will have to do this most of the time. Maybe others will take the data analysis post. So please just take a look at this as some information. So as I told you, so they're gonna be provided requesting information, provide solution to the given problem, conduct the diagnosis that may redefine the problem, which is one of the most important parts of this, Um, then you're going to have to provide recommendations, assist implementation, and then maybe in additional goals, you'll have to go with the company and just build the solutions with them. So which is going to be the structure that we're going to use for this case study? We saw that there's actually this data business case that we can create, these data projects. We saw that there's a consulting methodology here where we have several steps, which I already explained before, that were defined here. So for this case study in particular, we're going to have this methodology, and I think that you can use this in probably most of the projects that you can have. So I think I tried to make it as generalizable as it can be, and you can maybe use it for any business case, right? Okay. So the first thing to do is state the problem. So you wanted to define the goal. So here the problem is already given to you. So by your list, we're trying to, once again, try to raise and maximize profits while maintaining a good quality service. So it means reducing the bad reviews. But sometimes you have to define the business problem yourself. So one of the things you want to know is actually, what are you trying to optimize? Is it the profits? Is it the quality of service? Is it the delivery time? Are you trying to cut costs? Are you trying to increase the performance of the company? Why I'm saying this? Because you have to take into consideration several factors, right? Like here, if you just say we're going to cut, I don't know, the sellers that give us bad reviews, you'll have to take into consideration that actually the business models, one of the incomes of money, one of the income streams that they have, that they always have, is maybe the amount of fees that every single server has to pay. So you have to ask yourself, how I'm going to do that, how I'm going to cut these bad reviews while maintaining a huge, I would say, a healthy quantity of sellers. Then, second step for sure, diagnose the business idea using data. So you have to use your soft and hard skills to understand the company's business models. What are your clients? So the stream revenues, the costs, the customers, the process. For sure, your job as a consultant is to understand the best as you can, in the best possible way, how the company operates and works. For this, most of the time, you will have to use your statistical knowledge, but it's also really important to communicate with the team and the clients. You can ask them as many questions as you want. You will have to talk to the CEOs, ask him for reports, ask him the procedures, ask him what are maybe the mainly strategical points, what has been like the strategical positioning of the products. Maybe they're trying to fight competition by cutting prices, whatever. So understanding this is really important, and it's a big part of being a consultant. So understanding and being in the CEO shoes is maybe one of the hardest things to do, because most of the time you will have to give recommendations to a person that's been in the job for 20 years, and yeah, it can be quite harsh and difficult to put yourself in that situation, because you would think that actually how can you learn something to people that has been there for forever, right? So yeah, that's when you use skills, your data skills come. So maybe this person doesn't have all the tools and all the statistical knowledge in order to make practical and good recommendations with this, and so you're gonna understand what he understands and maybe add the value to your process and add value to your consulting business case by just operating this methodology, right? Then once you have diagnosed the business using data, you're going to use this data to model and predict. So we're going to use the inferential statistics to get a deep understanding of your company's features. What we will do here in this case, we actually do a simple ordinary least squares, which is going to be something that's equivalent to, say, linear regression, and we will try to understand how one feature fluctuates regarding our target. So what does that mean? A feature is going to be when you have the table. So as you saw, we have 8 tables, or what I call them also datasets, and these datasets will have several columns, right? And the column that we want to predict or target, or what we can say, um, the dependent variable, is going to be the review score, because we want to know what is going to impact the review score, right? So what we want to do is create a table when you have several columns that might define, or that may have an impact about this review score, and we want to see actually and understand how this is going to be impacting our target, right? And also, we're going to have to understand how one of the features fluctuates according to the other features on the target. That's what we're going to call multivariate regressions. So in the first case, what we're trying to do is actually see how individually a column, for example, let's see, wait time is going to have an impact on your review score. And then the second one, which is quite amazing on the multivariate regressions, is that we can check several columns. For example, wait time, um, expected delivery wait time. Um, Another one might be the distance between the seller and the buyer. And we actually can identify if we just modify one of these features, and taking the others, letting the others be stable, like be constant, what's going to be the impact on the final on the final on the target, so in the review score, which is quite useful. You don't have to understand everything about this linear regression and multivariate regressions. We're going to see it deeply in the third day of the seminar, so don't worry about it. It's mainly um, the so you have an idea, so you can start to think about what we're going to be able to do until the end of the week. Um, After we create these regressions, we're going to use these coefficients, which are going to mean they're going to explain the significance of the importance of these individual features on the target, on the variability and the variance of the target, and this is going to help us identify which are going to be the biggest and the most important features in order to find this, solve this problem about the review score. So yeah, this is going to be the frontier between data analysis and data science. But it's really important as a business consultant to be able to make these linear regressions, these linear predictions in some kind of way, in order to predict sales, costs, profits, etc. You're gonna see, but even people and data scientists that actually have and are have several tools and several machine learning algorithms that they can use. Most of the time, or I can say one of the tools that is several, like way more used than the others, is for sure the linear regressions. So yeah, that's going to be important. It's going to be a basic, some kind of discovery of machine learning. It's the basic of machine learning, so don't get too excited, but it's gonna be something that's quite useful for us in our several business cases that you're gonna train in the future. And then the final part is gonna be the make perfect pertinent recommendations. So yeah, of course, you will have your analysis, your statistical analysis. You're gonna have your modeling. You're gonna have your all-level regressions, your multivariate regressions, univariate regressions, and you will have to understand the theoretical part of everything that we're going to do this week in order to make this pertinent recommendation. So when we made these regressions, we will be able to identify which are going to be the most useful features, and maybe we're going to make some hypotheses, and we are going to have to make a presentation. So this presentation is going to be made through Power BI, if you would prefer. Maybe you can do it on a notebook if you feel more at ease. So you have to export your Power BI dashboard into your notebook. But the main idea is that you will have something that can be explained in a pitch, 5 minute speech, that you will be able to present your results. And you will have to present not only this theoretical part, but you have to actually use this theoretical part, and you're not going to present the weights, you're not going to present um, you're going to present maybe a little bit um, some kind of graphs that are going to be KPIs, so key performance indicators, which are going to be used to decide what is the best strategy to take and the best solution to take in this problematic. So yeah, take that into consideration. You have to understand everything, and you have to use this information, to create something simple in a 5-minute pitch. You have to picture yourself talking to the CEO of the company, and then just use these results and these dashboards in order to make your pertinent recommendations, right? Um, really important, always base the recommendations on empirical data analysis. So every single time that you're going to see a client, they're going to try to understand why. So most of the time, and maybe most of the time, they're not going to understand why are you giving them these recommendations. So you have to explain uh, in a simplified way that the data just showed that actually those recommendations come from analysis, regressions, statistical inference, etc. Some other advice is that you can try to propose different solutions to the client. It's not quite recommended to just say this is the only solution. You will have to do this, or this, or this. But actually, it's really takes some hypotheses. So maybe you can cut some of the sellers. Maybe you can raise their monthly fee, the ones that are performing bad. So you want to be able to give them the choice. So you're not gonna impose what they actually the solution. You're gonna give them a panel of choices with hypotheses, and that's what you're gonna show in your Power BI. You're gonna give it to them. What's gonna be the effect of saying let's say one of the solutions might be cut some part of the seller. So what's going to be the impact on the revenues, on the monthly fee income, etc. So you're going to be able to just modify it at some kind of graph and then just have the visual impact right away. So the person is going to be able to determine which is going to be the best option. Yeah, and often people also forget about the quick wins. So most of the time you will have long-term solutions and quick wins. Long-term solutions are more oriented towards structural problems that comes from the business model, the strategy, the logistics, which are going to take a lot of time to solve. So even though you have to, of course, propose something to solve this in the long term, a lot of clients and most of the clients appreciate a lot the fact that you can always have quick wins. So try to consider establish a two-part plan always. Here is not going to be the case with the oldest case. You're going to have just right now solutions probably because this is a specific case. But when you do this in real life, you want to be able to propose to the client. Okay, we're going to have to start digging a little bit on the logistics, start digging a little bit on the financial accounts to see why are you losing so much money in this, in this, in this. But you want to also propose and make a recommendation in short term, to stop the bleeding, for example. And what can you do for this? Okay, so in a short term period, we can establish these measures, this policies, this strategy, and it's going to be helpful because it's going to be able to stop the bleeding and cut the cost in a short term way. So that's quite important. Do not underestimate the importance of small quick wins to your business. Clients love always to see quick results. And the last part, which is as important as the other, is going to be the communication. So this is important as any other step. It can be brilliant and make complex models, but if you're unable to communicate them, then your client will never adopt your recommendations. So please make a clear, simple presentation explaining how the path to your recommendations. Use dashboards, visuals, everything that you can synthesize your findings and do it in the most simple way. So yeah, for sure we're going to see some complex things this week, but do not try to make a presentation about showing that you understand, that you understood the technical, complicated stuff. You just use that in order to have the better insights, the best insights, the best recommendations, and then you would just have to use that in order to simplify and make a simple presentation with your hypotheses, what you're changing, and what's going to be the impact on the profits. That's it. So yeah, that's going to be mostly the plan for this week. I also wanted to talk real quick about something that you're going to do today. We're going to enter a little bit in the code of Power Query, but it's going to be something that I had to do because it's something that has to do with relative and absolute path. So just to have a really quick view about this, it's going to be explained on the challenges, but um, we're entering the code because when you send a document to somebody else, um, you're going to have a path, right? And your path is going to be, for example, C my documents, C users, Juan my documents, and the name of the document. Let's say that's going to be the path. When you send this path to somebody, the person is the file, the Excel is going to try to find this path on the other people, on the other person's computer, right? So if you linked this Excel to a database, which is something we're going to do, it's not going to find the database, so you're not going to be able to enter and modify the queries, right? So for this particular matter, I found a solution that's going to be explained during, I guess, the first challenge. You're going to have to modify a little bit of the source code in Power Query. Don't panic. This is something you can actually do for any single other project. Is some simple steps. They're going to be explained actually on the challenge, and it's on the second challenge of today on the data preparation that you're going to see it. And we're just going to enter and modify this, what we call this absolute path, which has my name, my users, my documents, and that's going to be able, no one's going to be able to find it if you send it to a client, to something that's going to be a relative path, which is going to find the path where you stored your actual Excel notebook or your Excel file in your computer through this. This right here, which is going to be the formula that you're going to put into your cell in order to have your absolute path, and then we're going to modify it in order to find each computer's path so you can link it to the database. So technically, what we're doing here is sending this to a person with a formula. When the person is going to open the Excel document, it's going to write its own file path. So it's not going to be on the Hudav documents, but it's going to be, I don't know, Pierre, whatever your name is, documents, and whatever you store, your Excel path. And this, when you follow these few steps, which they might seem a little complicated, but they're actually going to help you send it to any client. So, for example, the only thing that you have to keep in mind is that the Excel where you're going to work all your queries, all your regressions and everything has got to be on the same folder with all the data sets, with all the CSVs, right? So it's got to be on the same folder where you're going to be putting all your customers, geolocation, all this data set, etc. And then you will have to have your Excel when you're going to put all the queries inside. And following this path, you will be able to send it to anybody, and that person is going to be able to access your queries and access every single piece of information that you will put inside of your Power Query, which is going to be here. So here are the basic queries. They have been a little bit modified compared to this, so don't worry if it's not exactly the same here, because I have this data that I actually removed. But for sure, keep this in mind, because if you don't do this and if you just import the files from the CSV and you send it to somebody, nobody's going to be able to modify the queries. So if somebody wants to work with the document, it's not going to be feasible and doable. So that's an important step. It's going to take and find the path corresponding to the computer and what document is saved on your computer, and then it's going to link it to the database, which has to be on the same folder as the Excel document, and you have to tell that to your client. I guess that's going to be it for me for the lecture one. Today is quite light, so don't worry about it. You're going to have to understand the databases. You're going to have to draw a little bit a scheme of the database. So how is it related to the others? How the CSVs are linked to the others through the relational database. It's more of an understanding day. Yeah, keep in mind that it's important, so you have to understand it pretty well in order to make more complex queries in the next few days. Um, so there's going to be an exercise for that, and an exercise for importing the data, and an exercise to stop maybe seeing what's inside and the distributions and other statistical tools. So I will say you goodbye now and have a good luck with your first day challenge of the decision science.